See what he comes back with here on the 2-2. Perfectly done.
Up to the left side, Alvarius comes over right at the railing. Oh! And makes a great catch! He ended up in the first row. Alvarius ends the game with the defensive jam of the afternoon.
I'm going to start it for us. So this is K-Zone Podcast, Episode 7. We're joined by a couple world champs. We got David St. John, Brad Allen of Elite Duck Calls. They've been up here at our farm for a couple hours shooting some marketing stuff, but we're extremely excited to have them on. Back when we started this podcast probably 2 months ago, they were definitely top of the list to get them on here. I mean, your resume, credentials just in the waterfowl world and the calling and the duck call industry is – I mean, there's a lot of people that look up to you guys, and I know there's some people that are very interested in kind of hearing what you guys have to say.
Well, I'm about 6'4", so
Yeah.
I get looked up at a little
right.
bit for some reason
That's
or another.
right. Not the first
I was
time.
6'1", now I'm down to 6.
You're just shrinking as you
So
go.
I'm shrinking as I get older.
Shrinking as you go. Yeah, well, it's good to have you guys here, and this is our 7th one, and as we go, we're just trying to just bring in guys from the industry or buddies, and we just want to kind of hear your background and kind of how you got into the industry. And, we kind of were thinking of a few questions, and I actually put out a little survey yesterday on our K-Zone story, and there's some people that asked some questions, so I'm going to kind of ask y'all. But I guess I kind of want to lead off with just y'all's background. I mean, I don't know who wants to start, but David, do you want to kind of go into where you grew up and how you got into the calling industry?
Yeah, I actually was born and raised in Lone Oak, Arkansas, and traveling around with my grandfather. He worked for the fish farms down there, which that's a big industry.
Yep.
And I used to ride with him to work and trying to get up early with him in the mornings, and he would actually drop me off in the corner of a pond and go. He'd go check the farm, for all the cranes and stuff, trying to run them off, and I'd get to sit there and try to duck hunt. That's kind of as far as getting into the duck hunting. And I remember asking him when I was like 13, where are the big ducks? Where are the big ducks? Want to know where the big ducks, the mallards and stuff. And he'd always talk about the White River and the cache and all that. But that's kind of how I got started there. And I transferred, played baseball at UCA, and that's kind of where I met my wife. And my buddy Rob Watts was in the industry with Echo Calls, and he told me one year, he said, man, you duck hunt a lot. He said, you need to try to come blow in competitions. And kind of that's the quick story of how I got started. So I started going over there back in 98, 99, something like that, and kind of got into the duck calling world championship stuff. And that's where I met this man. That's been 20-something years ago.
Did you know that, obviously you probably didn't know from day one, but as you got to blow and call, did you know you wanted to pursue a championship, or was that a hobby of just duck calling or collecting duck calls? Like, what really sparked that interest?
As y'all well know, y'all played baseball.
Right.
I'm a competitor.
Yeah.
And once I was talked into trying this out, practicing trying to blow these routines and stuff like that, enticed me, to be competitive. When we were told on the front end, it takes 3 years to even be competitive. And, it was a challenge for me, so once again, the competitive nature, I thought, I'm going to try this. And the first contest I ever blew in was in Memphis at the Ducks Unlimited deal. Mm-hmm. And I was told, he said, Rick told me, he said, you're probably not going to make it past the first round. He said, but you need to get your feet wet.
Yeah.
Well, after the first round, I made it, and he turned and looked at me, and he goes, you made it? And I said, yeah. I said, yeah, I made it. And he said, man, you must have done pretty good because you're at some pretty big company.
Yeah.
You got Rick Dunn, Wayne Betts, a bunch of them
Some
guys,
legends.
some legends in the duck calling industry. And I got so fired up and nervous at the same time that I messed up in the second round.
Yeah.
So I go out and I look, and I'm tied for second place after the first round, and the man had just hook, line, and sinker. I was there.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I got into it. And like I said, I met this man back then, and we've done a lot of traveling together over the years.
Brad, where'd you grow up? Where you from?
I guess kind of the quick version. I grew up in a big town. Have you ever heard of Beattyville?
Yes, I have.
You've heard of Beattyville, okay.
Massive.
It's about 17 miles southeast of Newport, Arkansas, for anybody out there that's listening that has a map. But just a wide spot in the road. I always say I didn't grow up in town. I grew up in the suburbs. I wasn't actually there, within the signs. But anyway, grew up hunting with my dad and his friends. We hunted on Cache River. So, I mean, I think I started when I was 6 years old. He would take me on the warmer days. We had a blind there that was heated, so as long as it wasn't too tough, he would take me with him. And, it was just one of those things that I loved right away. And I think the big reason for me was my dad was a farmer, and he farmed, it was like 45-minute drive to the farm and then back. He farmed his father-in-law's, my grandfather's land, which was a pretty good distance away. And, a farmer's long hours, I just didn't see him that much, So I think a lot of my love for duck hunting came with just getting to spend time with him in the winter because he was off during the winter months, 1988, he took me to Stuttgart for the first time to the Wings Over the Prairie Festival. And I love duck calling. That was something I wanted to do right from the get-go. And as soon as I heard those guys calling, I realized I really stink at blowing a duck call. I'm really not good at it at all, but I was just fascinated to listen to it. And every year we would go back. It just became a father-son trip for us. But while I was doing it, I never thought you kind of fantasize about getting better, and I would practice all year and think, man, I think I might be able to do this one day. Well, I'd get there and I'd listen to them. Nope. Not even close.
Just different level.
Yeah, different level. And I knew. So I kind of gave up on doing that, but I still love going to the festival. I love duck calling. I always practice, try to get better. And when I was in college, there was a hunting club that I grew up on there at Beattyville that was bought by a guy that had a duck call company and was a world champion duck caller. And I went and did a little bit of guiding for him. And I think that was the first time I thought, you know what, maybe I do need to actually try this, see if I can learn. I actually learned that there's a culture of people that can teach you this and make you better. And I had a long way to go. And I thought, well, after I graduate, when I get out of grad school where I won't get kicked out of my apartment for practicing, might give this a try. So I got out, got my degree in physical therapy in 97. Started competing in 98, so started a new job and started a new hobby at the same time with Rick Dunn, same with David here. I think I started maybe a year before David did.
So was Rick the guy that had bought the property you're talking about?
No, it wasn't Rick. Actually, it was Buck Gardner that had bought it.
Yeah.
And he and I didn't talk about actually me competing or anything like that. We actually, the truth is, and if Buck was here, we could talk about it. We kind of ended on bad terms. Right. I think my thing of getting started with competition was more about being ticked off than it was about anything else.
Right.
Now since then, Buck and I are friends. We've kind of made amends, and I've grown up a little bit, and he and I've become good friends, and I think the world of Buck. But that's kind of how I got started, and I went thinking, okay, I want to learn how to do this. And Rick, the first year I actually went to the contest thinking I might try to learn how to do this, and I want to actually study it. I'm not just a spectator now. I'm trying to learn something. Right. And Rick Dunn won the world that year, and found out that he made duck calls. I knew nothing about the duck call world as far as custom call makers. So I found out he made duck calls, and I got in touch with him, and he was gracious enough to help me and invite me to come practice with some of the guys and learn from there. So that's how I got my start.
Now, David, I know you work for Echo. Was that one of your first, after you got done calling or with your competition career, was that one of your first companies you worked with, or how'd you get into that?
Yeah, I started work for Rick probably 2 or 3 years after I got in the contest scene.
Okay, so you were working for him, with him,
yes,
while you were doing that.
That's correct.
I got you.
So about 2 or 3 years, 4 years before I was blown in the contest, then that fourth year I started working for Rick.
Now, were you turning calls? Were you what was your?
What I started out doing, of course, cutting reeds and things like that, and learning about tuning the polycalls and things. Then of course, my minor was computer science,
right. And
then actually helping shipping and getting orders printed out and things like that, and putting calls together and tuning calls. Guys would come in. If Rick was out, I'd tune calls, things like that. There was quite a few of calls that came in a lot, throughout the off season that needed to be tuned. So I would tune them calls, and I'd put everything together, as far as shipping wise, stores and stuff like that. And a few years later, I ended up being, his sales rep, sales manager type deal, and handling a bunch of stores, his stores and
Retail stuff.
for him. So I did that for quite some time, all the way up until I started work for Brad.
Yeah. Brad, let's talk about your startup with Elite. What year, first off, what made you want to start your own duck call company, and how'd you get your start?
Well, it was a door that opened through competition. I always thought, even after I'd won my first one, that the world just really didn't need another duck call company because there were so many. But after I won my second one, I thought, you know what, this is an opportunity to do something I love, even if it never really takes off. If I just do it on a small scale, I know the right people. I can get started in this business and try to make a call that I like, and we'll just see where it goes from there. So after I was blessed to win my second world championship, I thought, why not give this a try? And once I got started, man, I was addicted to it. I was still working as a physical therapist. I started working. I was doing a lot of the work above my garage. But it was still more of a hobby. But the more it progressed, the more I found myself at work all the time just thinking about my hobby, wanting to do it. It's hard to sit down and do that paperwork, when at work while you're sitting there thinking, man, how can I make that call sound better? I've got something else to do. So it just kept going that way, and breaking away from it. I'm trying to remember what year it was that I thought, okay. Probably would have been somewhere around, let's say I won again 13, so probably right around 2014, 15, somewhere in there. I actually tried to do Elite full time, and in essence, I kind of failed. I started, and I just couldn't really make it go yet. So I didn't quit Elite. I just had to go back to seeing patients again, doing the physical therapy. Yeah, it wasn't really on hold. I was still going as fast as I could, but I realized it's not good enough yet to get me
full time
to where I can make a living for my family. If I'd been single guy still, I probably could have done it, but I thought this is not fair to my family, so I went back, and it was kind of a tough time realizing I kind of felt like I'd failed, but I didn't want to quit. So I kept going with Elite as hard as I could, did physical therapy until I was able to try again, and then luckily able to turn it into a full-time gig now.
It sounds like most of those call companies kind of start just like that. I mean, I feel like it's so hard just to scale it right off the get-go, especially in this industry. But what's so shocking to me is, and just for people that don't live in Arkansas or don't duck hunt or don't do anything like that, is how big just like duck calling is in general, and then just like how serious it is. Because like unless you've been to like the competitions or anything, like if you're just now getting into duck hunting or whatever it is, like you have to go see one of these just because it's awesome, and it's crazy just how big of a thing it is in Arkansas, and how many people come in and travel from out of state now just to come witness it. And I don't even know how long the championship's been going on. I mean, maybe y'all do, but I mean, you see these old pictures of people in Stuttgart back in like the 50s and 60s, and I'm sure it was going on before then.
I think it was 1936.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
I was saying it was 36, 37, something or there.
And people that aren't in the hunting industry don't know just about the Wings Over the Prairie, the festival or the Ducks Unlimited banquets or anything like that. But it is such a huge deal in Arkansas just for duck callers and duck hunters in general. And I think it's awesome. If you haven't been to one of those, it's a good time.
How do you qualify for that? I honestly don't know anything about the competition trail, so just kind of enlighten us on that a little bit.
You can either win a sanctioned regional contest or your state contest.
Right.
When I say your state, the states are not open just to anybody that travels from one state to another. It's for that particular person in that state.
So if you were to you have to qualify in Arkansas.
Well,
first.
if I blew in the Arkansas state,
right.
I would be if someone from Nebraska wanted to try to qualify the Arkansas state, they couldn't.
They couldn't.
So they had to qualify in their own, their own state contest.
Right.
Regionals are all over the country.
Have to be 3 states, at least 3 different states represented for a regional.
For a regional, to qualify, as far as a sanctionship.
Yeah.
So, we traveled like to Kansas City and Michigan. They've got them in New York, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, they've got regional contests everywhere. So, you can travel. I mean, they've even got them out in California. I think the Oregon Waterfowl Festival has actually a regional sanction contest and their state contest now. So you have to try, you have to win a sanction. It has to be sanctioned by the Stuttgart Chamber of Commerce.
I got you. Because that was actually one of the questions that I received, and I personally don't know a whole lot about how to qualify. And so I guess if somebody was watching this right now and they wanted to get involved in that and try to qualify, like what's the first few steps that you would recommend or some advice that you'd give somebody trying to get on the competition trail?
Well, I'll let David put his 2 cents in. I would say, first of all, get familiar with the contest, because this is different than anything that you've ever done. This is not the same type of duck calling that we're going to do out in the woods or out in the field. And I've seen guys come into the contest. I remember one gentleman from Alaska that showed up. I'd been doing, I think it was the first year I'd qualified for the world, and he came in blowing one of the old wooden mallard tone duck calls, that I started on as a kid. And he was like, "Man, I've never heard anything like this. I just entered this contest and won. Being in Alaska is not a big competitive group up there. So I would say to anybody, first, get familiar with what you're getting into. And, you're blessed now with YouTube videos and different things like that you can see this style. And then I would try to seek out an actual person that is a competitor in your area. Try to find, who are the best callers in your state. Or a bordering state, and call them. And that's the thing about it. We've all had to start somewhere, so most competitive callers are willing to help. Most are. So if you get in touch with them, I think they'll help you get set up. You need to get a duck call that is capable of doing the style, what we've nicknamed the Main Street style, and then start working with someone, and they can kind of coach you through a routine and get you going, with the rules and everything like that. But get familiar and get equipped, and then from there, and you're just going to have to take your lumps. Just don't be shy about it. Realize, man, I've taken a lot of beatings. David was talking about the contest in Memphis that had all the best callers. That was my first one as well. I think the year before he competed, and I went down there and thought, I'm fixing to show these people exactly how good I am. And man, I got beat by a girl. Like it was, David sitting there, he's in second place after the first round. It was horrible. I could tell you all kinds of horror stories about that particular contest with what happened to me and how nervous I got. But you have to take your lumps. You have to learn from it and be willing to keep coming back.
Anything to add, or about?
He's hit it right on the money. The only thing I guess I could add, I just think same thing that was told to me back years ago. If you get a chance, it was now, back then we had to buy the CD or the DVD and watch it and listen to the top 10 callers in the world. And you can kind of start to design a routine by listening to the top 10. That's what we were told years ago. Listen to the top 10 guys. That's what it's all about. Not that anybody 11th, 12th, or whatever is not good enough, but the top 10, if you're looking to win a world championship, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. And you brought up something a second ago, because you were talking about the competition you got beat in. He was in second place. Were y'all buddies on the competition trail?
Well, that particular contest, I think he was in it. I was talking about the contest the year before he entered it.
Yeah, the year before, and then the next year.
But as far as being buddies on the contest trail, we were best of friends. I think David and I, we formed a friendship right away, and we traveled together a lot. We never dreamed we'd be working at a duck call company, have our own company, and doing all this together. We didn't think that at the time, but we were just trying. I think we started as younger, more inexperienced callers, just trying to break into the door to be amongst the top callers, and so we kind of fought that battle side by side along the way. And even after we started making the climb a little bit, it was kind of funny that a lot of times we were driving to contests, and I knew that the toughest competition there was going to be him, and it sure was a long ride back when I had to ride, in the vehicle after he just beat me. I'm sitting here with,
and that's vice versa too.
Maybe I've got a runner-up trophy, and he's, over there polishing first place, and grinning at me the whole way back from Illinois. It's a long trip. So anyway, but yeah, Dave and I have been close friends the whole way, and it's just really cool now that we get to work together doing what we're doing.
Absolutely, that's good stuff. I had one more question about the trail. So is it a point system? Like this is, again, if there's anybody out there that hadn't ever heard or anything, I'm right there with you. So I mean, I'm trying to get educated as well. So do you go out and qualify for points, or do you go out, like, do you have to win that qualifier in order to advance, or is there?
Yeah.
How does it work?
You have to win the event.
Okay.
I mean,
So if you get second place and you get first place, you're done. Like you're done for the year.
unless they have
No.
another sanctioned contest that
okay.
day.
The winner, like it's a qualifier, and maybe you're saying what I think. I don't know if we're
Is it
together
like
on
is there
this.
multiple opportunities to
Yes.
continue to qualify? It's not like just one.
Yeah. So if we enter a contest here in Arkansas and David wins, now he's punched his ticket, so he's not going to enter any more sanctioned events.
Gotcha.
There are other calling contests he could enter, but no more sanctioned.
Right.
If I get second place, now I have to. I haven't gone anywhere. I still have to go somewhere else to another regional or our Arkansas state, because that's where I'm a
gotcha.
resident, and I have to win one of those. And like the first year that I did competitive calling, I finished first runner-up in the last 4 contests that I entered. I did not qualify for the world, but I finished first runner-up in the last 4. That was another one of those jagged little pills to swallow at the time, but it turned out to be a great thing because I actually got to sit out in the audience, and when I actually knew a little something and watch and
got to
learn,
learn.
it was probably a better experience for me to do that than anything. But yeah, that's the way that works. You got to win one.
I tried to do some homework the other day. You won in 2014, but you qualified for Worlds like 14. There's something that said 18 straight years.
17, 18 straight years.
So when you qualify, that means like you're in Stuttgart 17 straight years.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And how many do they take for that final competition in Stuttgart? How many are out there?
There's back then there was 68 to 72 callers. Back then
In Stuttgart.
In Stuttgart,
Okay.
that were vying for the world
Right.
championship. I think this year they had 55 or something like that. Because there's a lot of people across the country that's probably given up their sanctionship or something like that. So there's not probably as many, and they're trying to rebuild a lot of that. And, other people taking on contests. But I mean, back then it was 68, 72. I think maybe at one time we even got to 75 callers in the back.
Wow. Does that number fluctuate, or is it pretty
can.
set?
It can. There. I've seen where some guys qualify, and maybe family issue come up or something, and they don't make it down.
Right.
Or someone got sick or something like that. So it'll vary back and forth every now and then. But now I think, like I said, I think this year they had 55 or 56 callers this year. Makes for a pretty long night, though.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
Whether it's 55 or 72,
Guarantee
Now,
it.
long night. Not to try to take over your position on the podcast as the host, but me and this guy set a record for the longest contest ever. In 2013.
in 2013.
I don't know how many contestants we had in the whole contest, but you blow 3 rounds is what's mandated to win. Well, we tied 3 times, so we came back, and we didn't know what place it was.
Right.
But we came back, and we did 2 contests in one. Just he and I blew 3 tiebreakers between us. And that was the record for the longest. I think it was over 6 hours.
Yeah, it was over 6 hours.
for the whole thing. But yeah, he and I still this day say that was our contest. And
That's crazy.
But yeah, that was the record.
Now,
was a long
in
night.
those contests, and y'all just enlighten us on how it started, but your routine. Like, did someone set the routine that you have to blow, or do you come up with your own, or has it just evolved into kind of what it is now? Because you hear them and it's,
They sound the same.
they all sound the same. So that's what I was wondering. Like, can you make your own routine, or is there a standard you kind of have to follow?
The standard, and the guys I work with now, and the girls and the ladies or whatever on the routines, something that was instilled in my head years ago about that through Stuttgart, and you'll hear them explain it, that weekend when they're interviewing some of the ladies or men downtown, is you're mimicking calling ducks at a long distance, and you've got them to break, and they're getting closer to you, and as they're getting closer to you, so you're talking about the 3 hail calls. Some guys do 4, sometimes some guys do 3.5 hail calls. So there's a set time, though. You've got 90 seconds to do all this. So you're calling them at a long distance, and you're getting them closer, and you're breaking them in with what they call a transition or your low-end ducks. You know, the and then you're breaking it in the feed. Now you've got them really circling around and coming back. And then all of a sudden, someone looks out from behind a tree and scares them off. So now you got to get them back.
And this is all part of one routine.
This is all part of one routine. So now you're doing what they call a step up. It's soft ducks to medium ducks to back to your top end. And then they're not coming back. And then there's a deal called the triple comeback. So you're blowing like 3 mini hail calls in a row without a breath. And then you've got them breaking back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now
and that's the format for just about every guy in the
That's right.
competition.
And people, you know, some of them blow a little bit different transitions, you know, may not sound the same or, you know, it may sound the same to you, but we can kind of pick because we've been in it for quite a while.
Well, what's a judge? I mean, obviously the judges know what they're – it's kind of comes second nature to them, I'm sure, what they're trying to hear. But, like, are they looking for power? Are they looking for finesse? Are they looking for just everything being perfect? Like, what are they looking for?
You ready for this? It's a blend.
Yeah.
It's a blend. You're going to have some that's not looking for as much power as the next guy. So it's, you know, it's a blend.
Yeah.
That's my opinion of that.
Yeah, it's a very subjective thing, and like I say, you know, it is the set routine, but you put your own spin on it. You know, not everything is completely identical. But yeah, I mean, if you and I watch a beauty contest, we're probably going to pick a different winner. You know, and it's a subjective thing, and so some of the judges are more in tune with finesse. Some guys like power a little bit more. You have to look at the judging board to kind of see, you know, and we don't really change anything. We don't look at the judge and say, well, this guy's judging, I'm going to change what I'm doing. You just you put your best stuff out there, and hopefully you have a panel that likes it. And the judging, there's 5 judges. They throw out the high low. It's kind of like Olympic scoring, and then you get the three scores that are in between. But it varies from judge to judge what they like. What a lot of it has to do with age too. You know, there was a certain style that we did during this time period, this many years, and now more modern stuff. They're liking something a little bit different.
That was actually my very next question. Has this competition evolved from when y'all were winning?
It's changed.
I haven't been the last couple of years, but from when y'all were in Stuttgart competing, do routines sound different? Is the style different? Are guys using different calls?
Your format is the same,
right?
But I think the styles have changed, and I think in a lot of ways it gets better over time. And I think that's with anything, sports or anything. You know, training gets better, equipment gets better. The calls are better now than they were.
Guys start
just
training
a few
younger.
years ago. Yeah, guys are training young, and then. You know, Dave was talking about us trying to find a DVD. You know, well, he said DVD. I started out with a VHS tape. You know,
right.
And then I don't know if they had duck on 8-track.
You're too modern.
Yeah, but now it's YouTube. You know, you can just flip your computer on, get lessons on how to do this. So I think everything kind of just going to progress. Both the techniques, the availability of teaching, and the calls. Everything getting better. I don't know. What do you think, David?
They are, and there's just a few things that's changed. Like, for a prime example, back when me and Brad first started, once you got to what they call your closeout, after you get your triple comeback, your transition, then your feed again, on our closeout, we would close out on the top end, just like we were blowing another hail call.
Right.
Well, I'll never forget, I remember a judge walked up to Brad and said, if you wouldn't have done that, you'd have probably won on my card, but I offered you 5 points. And Brad was like, what? 5 points, So, things changed. So then we started closing out with just bottom ducks.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they didn't want it. Most judges didn't want a cadence in your feed. So you just wanted to blow a straight feed with some drags in it, And then I was told one time, he goes, well, you put a cadence in your last feed, so I didn't like that, so I docked you 2 points or what,
So y'all are getting feedback from the judges.
Oh, yeah. And typically that's how you're going to learn, because I was told to always go up to the judges and see what they think, to me, and I may get jumped on for this, but the better judges will keep notes.
Right. Okay, so they do write stuff down.
A lot of them will, a lot of the judges will keep notes. Some of them have their own system where +1 or an asterisk, like he blew good, or, just little side stuff, and I mean, you can write something down quick if you hear a mistake, high tone, whatever.
Right.
So you can kind of go get some feedback.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna kind of move this thing along real quick. I've got a couple questions that some guys asked yesterday, so I'm going to pick two. What do y'all think the duck hunting as we know it will be in 50 years?
I'll be 103.
Yeah, I guess you won't be knowing a whole lot. But I'm guessing they're referring to bird numbers or habitat or pressure.
It's
It's a great question.
It's
I
a
don't
very
know.
open-ended question.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have that crystal ball. I'm fearful for it that it won't be what it is today. And that's why I think it's so critical that we try to get youngsters out in the field as much as we can, and that's not easy to do. You know, we get chasing ducks hard, and it's going to slow you down when you take a kid a little bit. It's a little bit of a pain to do. I mean, it's just call it what it is. But at the same time, that's how we got started. At least that's how I got started.
Yeah.
Those men were good enough to take me, and I think you need to find, if it's not your kid, take your kid's friends. Take your kid and his friends, or find a young man or young lady somewhere that needs to get out and hunt. But I think staying focused on getting the youth involved, and then trying to watch the duck population, support the management groups who don't always make the decisions that we like, but try to protect the habitat and things like that. But as the world changes, I worry about it sometimes. Actually getting out in the outdoors and doing stuff, no matter what it is, we don't. It's the interest of the youth is changing. So
I just say stay ethical, though. That I think. Don't make this a popularity contest.
Yep.
Hunt with ethics. I think if anything kills it more than anything, that will be,
Well, I mean, that's literally the thing that keeps the population thriving is
That's right.
obeying limits, stuff,
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. That just bothers me, It's bothered me for quite a few years.
Yeah.
With
And I think
ethical.
that's what this guy meant by this question
Yeah.
was population.
Yeah.
And I think we all know kind of
We
They're-
want everybody in the outdoors.
100%.
We want them out in the outdoors. We want to take kids hunting. We want kids to go hunting. Just as we sit around this table, and I had this sent to me one time by a video that I've shared when I was up at Straight Lake, and that guy said, "Man, you're blessed." And if you don't think about it, what you've actually got to see, and some of the stuff I've seen, 200 or 300 ducks going through a hole in the timber. Well, a lot of people don't get to see that right there. I love for a kid to watch, just to watch,
100%.
not even shoot, just watch. So I've been blessed, and Brad same way, I'm sure, but blessed with what we've got to see. That's what we want these kids to see.
And I got a couple things just off that, and a lot of people, because I know like me and Josh, we'll get going in a season and we get so distracted, and we always have people asking us to go. But whenever you do get the chance to take someone for the first time, or take someone and let them take a deer for the first time, I've probably taken 5 or 6 friends that have killed their first deer here on this farm, and then we've taken countless people duck hunting, and when they experience it, they instantly become obsessed, and it's become such a huge thing. Because now with those friends, like I might not talk to them all year, but whenever hunting comes around, and they're automatically back in it, and they don't have the chances to go hunting. They don't have the resources that we do. So like we have friends every year that travel from all over to come hunt with us, and that's such a big thing. And then kind of the reverse on that question is, what have y'all seen from growing up to now on duck hunting? Have y'all seen some major changes or anything like that? Because you always hear, and it's always a hot topic, it's like, well, duck hunting ain't what it used to.
the good old days or whatever.
And I would say since we started duck hunting, and maybe it's just because we've gotten, a little better spots, or kind of learned about what we're doing a little bit more. But I mean, it's definitely gotten better, from our view and what we've seen the past 10 to 15 years just hunting and where we started. And I just kind of want to get y'all's thoughts on that, because that's what everybody always talks about,
Yeah, I think sometimes it's human nature to overglorify the past and criticize the present maybe a little bit too much. I think we always think things are better. We're better back in the old days. Which in some ways are probably true, and in some ways not. I think the techniques have changed a little bit. I think overall we have a better understanding of how to, having rest areas for the birds and having feed areas and things like that, and some of the changes we've seen in Arkansas, I think, are because of the northern states getting better at what we've always done. They're holding birds a little bit better. So I think in some ways it's a lot better. The biggest thing that I hate, of course, we saw the introduction of RoboDuck, that changed things a little bit. I when I was a kid, getting bigger groups in was a lot easier. I got to see those big groups coming into the timber that you don't see as often now. Right. I think a lot of that has to do with the way that the RoboDuck has affected, you've got half the group or part of the group, the younger birds may come in and land, and you got some, they see the spinning wing, they're going to stay off of it. So you don't, you don't see that big cloud where the whole cloud's going to finish into your decoys. That's changed a little bit. I think the thing I hate to see the most is just hearing about the fights at the boat ramps, the public land hunting, and that's what so many guys, they're not blessed with private ground to go hunt. They want to get out there on the public, and that's a lot of where people are just getting their start. They're going to go to public land, and I don't know. You hear so many horror stories, guys that are not hunting ethically, as David said, and guys are just being rude, fights breaking out, things like that. I really hate hearing about that kind of stuff, and that's really bad for the sport.
100%. Anything else on that topic before I move on?
Just going off that, if you haven't hung off the front of the boat going through the Bayou at 4 a.m, scared for your life, you haven't lived yet. But it's become such a problem now, and we don't really ever go down there too much unless we got a group of guys that want to go or something like that. But I remember back in high school, or whenever we were growing up, we would go do that, and it was just that boat ride alone is the funnest time of your life. You don't know what you're going to get into. You might get the hole, you might not, but I've hunted with so many guys in college or whoever that all they do is public hunt, and the stories they tell, it's just, to me, that's just not worth it sometimes, So
yeah, when you look around at the boat ramp, when you look around, you see the other guys. Are you looking at fellow hunters that you can, even though you hadn't met them, potential friends, brothers in the outdoors, or are they all enemies?
Yeah, and it's turned to that way.
But it is human nature as a competitor.
Yeah,
and we're sitting here. We've all envied other hunters before. Naturally, you've seen a guy shoot 6 limits, and you're sitting there with a wood duck, and you're like, screw that guy. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like we need to be on the same team. And what's been cool, I've actually seen some videos. And I feel like you can see so many different hunts now on YouTube. And there's been, the last couple of years, there's been situations with no water on public ground. But you've seen guys team up, guys that are competing for a hole, join. I've seen some there's like 50, hunts. 60 people in one hole hunting.
That poor duck that comes into that hole. Yeah.
No chance.
It's crazy, but at the same time, it's also good to see guys that, guys spent multiple nights at that boat launch holding their spot. They get there, and then guys come in late, and they still accept them, and they get together and kill birds. That's what it's
wasn't
about.
There like up North Arkansas, I won't name where it was at, 101 guys
I've seen it.
Hunted together in one hole.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I love brotherhood now, but
that's overdoing it. Maybe just a little bit. But
yeah, when it gets hot is when you get a banded duck that gets shot. Exactly right. 50 guys squeeze the trigger, you got one band on the water. That could get hairy. So
100%. I'll do one more. This is more of a duck call question. Guy said, "What's your favorite all-around J-frame?"
Well, anything that says a lead on it, I think it's going to be in the lead, right?
Yes.
Well, do you want to go first or me?
As I've said on some of our ads, and I've had a cache that Brad made when he first started. I love the way the back pressure was. So as far as our lineup, it's a mid-range call, but I do a lot of timber hunting. I can even use it in the field if I need to. But I love the cache, catchy.
That's right.
But I like the cache myself.
Yeah.
With our line, my favorite, I don't know, the one I probably use the most is the Murder. The one that I recommend probably the most for other people is the one that we've nicknamed Freak. But more importantly than what model it is, no matter what call that you're using, which one of the models that are elite, or if it's another brand. There's certain things that I'm looking for in a call. I want a certain amount of raspiness in that call. I want a certain amount of volume. And I really am a stickler for like the back pressure that's in the call. I want to be able to get loud on the call and then at the same time be able to back my air pressure off to show some finesse to finish. With that same call that I broke the duck off, in the clouds, I want to be able to finish him on the water. And the right amount of back pressure allows me to put some of that natural whine squeal, what we've nicknamed Cajun squeal, into it. So those are just some things that I look for on a call. I don't want something that's really hard to push or difficult to blow. I want something that's pretty versatile. And those are some of the things that I would recommend anybody look for, whether you're looking for an elite or a different brand. Those are just some of the characteristics that I think about when I blow that call.
Yep.
And so this is kind of off the wall question, but it's always a thought that's been in my head when it comes to duck hunting and duck calling, and y'all might have a little more input on this. Do y'all think the ducks hear the exact tone of that call, or do you think they're more hearing the cadence of that call?
That's a good question.
Like, do you think a bad caller that can do the cadence can call ducks correctly, or do you think you have to sound like a duck sounds on the water? Because to me, it's like you got a duck flying 40 miles per hour through the air. Are they actually hearing the precise sound of that call, or are they just hearing the cadence of it?
Let me just add one thing before you answer. What's your buddy's name from Tennessee?
Christian Lindsay.
Christian.
Shout out Christian.
All right.
This is
we
awesome.
call him Neek Neek, but
What you call him? What?
Neek Neek.
Neek Neek. He
Neek
won't even
Neek?
blow a duck call.
Okay.
He goes, Neek 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 Neek, and he swears the ducks hear that vibration or that
The cadence of
the
it.
cadence. And I swear, on my life, I watched him do that and out the same blind we just left, and just work a group of mallards into the hole.
And by the end of it, we were all doing it.
And we were, and I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess
Because that's like my only question is just like, because you hear everybody like, oh, they're a bad call or whatever. But I feel like to me, as long as you can do the cadence of the call or like I don't know how to explain it other than that, but that's what those ducks are hearing. You got to think they're flying so fast, they're cutting through wind and doing all that. Are they actually hearing, what's coming out of that call? Or are they just hearing the vibration or the cadence and the way it's coming out?
Well, I'll say this: as a person that makes his living making duck calls, I sure hope like hell that Nick Nick thing doesn't get out. I hope y'all edit that out. I don't want the public getting on that Nick Nick thing. But I think you're right. I mean, I think when they're up in the clouds, we can only imagine what they're hearing up there.
Yeah.
A lot of roar of the wind and things that they're in there. So. I think it probably is that they're just hearing a little bit of noise, and that's why I always laugh at when we put, we'll put videos out, ads on Facebook showing the calls, and we blow them really aggressively. We're hammering the call, and then we'll back into feed, and then we'll get soft, just trying to show the range of the call. And I love it when guys get on there and comment, "Man, duck don't ever sound that way. Ducks don't get that loud. They don't do that." And I'm like, well, hell yeah, you're right, but I've got to get that duck's attention that's up in those clouds. I've got to do something that little bitty bird can't actually do. And if I can get his attention, I think like with the hail calls we would blow out hunting, he's probably going to hear a few of those notes. The last notes at the bottom, if you bring it all the way down, they're not going to hear that.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can, when you're really blowing at high ducks, I think you can hammer them a few notes. And you don't have to finish that whole hail. Just leave it, and then hit it again. You might blow 3 or 4 really good loud notes, step down to them, and then without finishing out the bottom. But I definitely think when it comes to working ducks, we've all seen live mallards that if your buddy sounded like as bad as that hen, that's supposedly our gold standard sounded, you take the duck call away from them.
Yeah.
So I definitely think most importantly is where you're at, being where the ducks want to be. We've all hunted in areas
100%.
where you can't scare them out.
Mm-hmm.
There are places I've been. We're out there. You're walking out around into decoys. You're picking up ducks in a boat, and you have ducks trying to land on top of you with a boat motor running. Seen it hundreds of times. And then other days you can't get them to do anything. And your location can make a world champion duck caller look really, really bad, and he can make a really bad duck caller look really, really good.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that it's more important to have those cadences down, to know when to call and when to shut up is more important than actually how good do you sound.
Yeah.
And your ability to read those birds, to know when to hit them, knowing when to shut up, I think that is more critical than actually sounding great on a duck call myself. What do you think, Dave?
Y'all had heard of Reelfoot Lake?
Yes.
Yeah. That's where that came
That's
from.
where that came from.
Okay, there you go. So that's
Where
he
Nick
says
Nick is
Nick's.
from. Nick Nick's from Reelfoot.
Well, from what I understood, it was yank yank. They called them yanking them down.
Whatever you're saying in the cadence of a duck.
In the
I think as
cadence
long
of
as
the-
it's that like that.
So when we used to go up and they used to have a contest at Reelfoot Lake, and right there at the boat ramp, and some of the stories, of course, making these road trips that we did, some of the stories we hear from the locals, I didn't believe it until stuff like that, and so I was like, they stand up on top. The guide would stand on top of the blind, and he'd say, "All right, boys, get ready. I'm fixing to yank them down." And they'd go, yank, 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 standing on top of the blind, no duck call with his mouth.
Telling you, I think it's something over there. I've seen it.
That's where it came from. But he said they had a whole blind.
We'll edit
doing
this
it.
out.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. And now, granted, he is a good duck caller. And
Sure.
he loves duck hunting,
Yeah.
so it's just like interesting.
But I'm like Brad, it's knowing when to
Yeah,
and when not to.
Yep.
yeah. And
You know,
for,
There's so
for all
many
we
factors that play part.
Yeah.
For all we know, whenever those ducks are turning or they're flying away, they're hitting them with the nang, 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 nang. And then whenever they come and turn, they just shut up.
They shut up. That's right.
Well, no
So-
disrespect to Neek Neek, and I hope I get to meet him or yank yank, But I'm telling you guys, I mean, the day that I'm sitting in a blind and there's somebody standing up screaming yank yank as loud as they can, I'm finding another hobby. Like I'll at least go shoot some specks. I mean, hopefully they don't start yodeling, But I'm gonna do something. I love duck hunting, but I'm out when it gets to that point.
God, the
man.
tactics some people can use, man.
I agree. Coming up on an hour, let's wrap this up real quick. So just a quick plug for Elite. Y'all, I mean, this is your busy time of year. Y'all are turning calls. You're fulfilling orders. If there is one pointer or one call out there that you would recommend to a beginner from your lineup, what would it be? If somebody out there, even veteran callers watching this, I know the edge is typically a good double read, but like what call would you recommend to somebody that's just trying to get into duck hunting or duck calling that needs one go-to call?
Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit and say two calls. I would say, number one, decide whether you want to blow a single read or a double read. Double reads are going to be a little bit more user-friendly. You'll pick up on them a little bit quicker. So that would be the call that I would put them on would be the edge for Elite is what I think. And typically someone just getting started, that's what I started them on. Now, if you've got someone that's like, hey, man, I'm sure I'm going to do this. I'm really going to put the time in. I want to do the work. You're not going to pick up on it as quickly with a single read, but I think it's a better way to learn. Even though you're going to be a little bit slower, it has a little bit more range to it. So someone that knows, hey, I'm going to put the time in, I'd steer them toward a single read. So if you want to go, double read, and some people say, look, man, I'm not going to sleep with this duck call under my pillow and I want to kill ducks quickly. Get the edge, get the double read. If you're really serious about it, you want to start with the single, I would start you with the freak to learn on. That would be my first. And both those calls, even though I'm saying it's a beginner call, we got a lot of professional guides out there using both of those calls. So it's not just a beginner only. It can take you through any level.
Sweet. And to add on to that, Brad has been on the Elite YouTube channel. You're putting out weekly, monthly videos of different calling tips for beginners and veterans. You just put a video out last week about finishing ducks. And then, Brad, you have the Art of Flight Control that's on YouTube. If you guys haven't seen that, it's I mean, how many hours? Y'all were in a professional studio. Like, y'all did the real deal. Brad's got an entire video from step one till whatever the last step is on learning how to blow a duck call, and you demonstrate it. You show techniques, breath control, all that, or air control.
Yeah, I guess for basic techniques through advanced. It's an hour-long video, and that's been one of the most fun things we've ever done. Had a lot of people come up and say, hey, man, I learned how to blow a duck call watching that video. And that's might be the most rewarding thing that I personally have ever done, duck hunting related, is put that out there. So it's got a lot of views. So, yeah, check that out, The Art of Flight Control.
Yeah, we'll put that in the link below. Fellas, anything else y'all want to add? I know Brad and David got to get back and ship some orders.
Yeah. And you guys that are watching, don't send the hateful emails. We're going to get back to work. You're going to get the call by Christmas. If you've ordered today, you're going to get it by Christmas. We're going to work some long hours for you, but we're going to get it done.
Sweet. Guys, check them out on social media. I know Brad's got Instagram, David's got Instagram, and then the Elite Instagram page has videos, information on a daily basis. Check them out at elitecalls.net. Got all of the apparel, hats, duck calls, goose calls, everything you want. It's going to do it for us here.
Yep.
Duck season comes back in on Saturday, and we're looking forward to it. So you guys be sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and be on the lookout for some more videos. Also, Brad does have a podcast, Outdoor Asylum, and the Calling Council. So y'all subscribe to his channel and be on the lookout for some of his podcast. Till next time, we're done.
We're good.
Good.
Thanks for having us.
Peace.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys, for coming on.